Well, why don't we get started? We'll continue to let people join us, and we can touch base and introduce the project team as we go through the presentation. So thanks again for joining us this evening. Again, if you just signed in, my name is Martha McCleary, and I'm with B&A Studios, and we are supporting the outreach and communications for the Parkline Development Permit Phase 1. We appreciate you joining us. We are recording tonight's session, and the structure is going to be very similar to those who've joined us before. We will be going through a short presentation to give you a little bit more detail about the submission. Following the presentation, we'll have time for a question and answer period. So during the session, if you have any questions at all, at the bottom of within your app, at the bottom of the screen, there's a question and answer function. You can tap that and submit questions to the project team. We will hold questions till the end and respond to as many as we can within tonight's session. Similarly, if you do have any questions or if you're having any technical difficulties, please message us. Kendall or I will be able to respond to you. So just a few housekeeping items too. Please remember again, so the session is being recorded and this is a shared space for open and respectful discussion. So we know we have a wide range of comments to get to tonight. We are going to do our best to get to all the questions and to listen to your comments and questions. So for the project team, I've introduced myself. We have joining us again, Tom from Minto, as well as Alex from Minto and Kendall. Also joining us is Tyler with Seidler Architecture and Emma with Ground Cubed. So they'll each be presenting a portion of tonight's presentation. So I'm going to pass it over, I think, right away here to Tom, and we'll get started. Again, if you're having any technical difficulties, just submit a question to us and we'll do our best to troubleshoot. And we'll take questions following the presentation. Thanks for joining.
Awesome. Thanks, Martha. Good evening, everyone. I see a few new names here in the registrant list, so I'll recap a few things that some of you have heard before. My name is Tom. I'm with Minto Group. We are a integrated land developer and home builder in Canada and the US. We've been in Calgary for at this point almost 15 years, but our history is much longer than that. We were founded in 1955 by four brothers. This year we're actually celebrating our 70th year in business. Over those 7 decades, we have constructed over 100,000 homes in Canada and the US, and we're looking forward to many more. So. We've been involved in multiple projects in Calgary over the last 12 years or so. This point, our team's over 70 employees in the region. We've completed 2 urban towers. You might recognize Annex and Era as completed projects of ours down at the bottom of the screen here. The first being in Sunnyside, second one being in Bridgeland. And then, we currently have 2 communities that are actively being marketed in East Calgary and in Airdrie, respectively, called East Hills Crossing and Wildfire with a range of products. This evening, we're here talking about the Phase 1 development permit. So I'll recap a bit for those who have not been part of the overall plans for the site. So Minto acquired the old Viscount Bennett Center property when it was marketed by Calgary Board of Education. We closed on the land in 2023 with planning having started even before that. So at this point, we're well over 2 years into the process. There was a very comprehensive planning process that was undertaken at the land use and outline plan stage. So there was an initial application that was formally submitted in fall of 2023. That went through several revisions. Over that, we saw changes in overall density, in placement of density and form on the site, in location of public spaces, namely city parks, right-of-ways, pathway alignment, you name it. The resulting plan is in conceptual massing is what's before you here. That was ultimately recommended for approval by City of Calgary administration, following several rounds of review and in-depth community consultation. That was then forwarded to Calgary Planning Commission, which granted it unanimous approval and recommendation for approval by council. And then following a public hearing in April of this year, the overall concept plan for the site and the land use was approved by Calgary City Council. So today we're here talking about a development permit for one subset of that overall plan. and land use. So what we're calling phase one is here in, so this is a view from the northwest, an aerial view of the site in Massing. So what you have in the background is Crowchild Trail, southwest. You've got Richmond Road here at the bottom, and then 25th Street Southwest. In the bottom right, and 30th Avenue here on the right. So north is over where my cursor is here in the bottom left. So phase one aligns with is bounded by 30th Avenue as one landmark, and a pathway that runs down near the alleyway along Crowchild behind. On its north end, and where the main building access is proposed to be, is along a new city street. So this new city street running through here would be a public asset turned over to the city once it's constructed. That would be the main access point for phase one. So a few things about this DP submission before I turn it over to the designers. So at the land use stage, what the city administration, Calgary Planning Commission, and council provided was basically the design space that we were allowed to design within. So it set limits on building heights, on unit counts, on building massing and floor area. It set parking requirements for bicycles and for vehicles. It set a number of attributes that we then need to design within. So what's shown here visually is very conceptual massing that was proposed at the land use stage. At development permit, we get into a lot more detail. It's shown in the buildings. So what you'll see in this development permit is roughly the same height and massing parameters that are in the land use. And some, the big principles approved, including emphasis on a high quality public realm and public interface around the project, and amenity rich design, both indoors and outdoors, in the building. In this DP, what you'll see now is much more details, such as the landscape plans around the site, elevation drawings, material and color palettes, window positions, balcony locations, key access points, and some more details. One thing I'll emphasize here is you may have seen development permits in your area that do not necessarily conform to the land use and are at times seeking variances from administration on the land use that's approved. In this case, we have asked the designers to stick fully within the council approved land use. So all the detail that we're going to share today provides a proposal that is fully conforming to land use or to council approved direction without variances. So we're sticking within heights, within unit counts, within densities, and parking requirements for the site. So with that, I will pass this over to Tyler with Zytom Architecture.
Thanks a lot, Tom. So just a few bits of information for Parkline Phase 1 at a glance. You'll see some of our conceptual renderings to the right. The land use district for this was determined through the land use redesignation. It is a DC direct control zoning, which means it is specific to the site. However, it is based on the existing MH2 Calgary bylaw zoning. All of the DC zoning elements are actually, for this particular parcel, are actually alterations to the MH2, which are more restrictive, not less restrictive. And they're just based on specific site conditions and the context. We're dealing with 0.39 acres, or just under 1 acre for the total site area. The building height is 21-meter height. It's a 6-story building. The allowable height with the DC zoning is 25 meters. So we've actually kept that below the maximum height allowed. It's a multifamily building. We've provided 119 dwelling units. The maximum density set out again for each parcel in the land use rezoning actually allowed us to build 158 units. So we aren't maximum building right out to the full limit. Excuse me. Of the 119 dwelling units, we do have a mix of 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, and a small selection of 3 bedrooms on the southwest corner. We are providing more than the required vehicular and bicycle parking. All of the vehicular parking is located within an underground parkade. We're providing 108 vehicle stalls. The bylaw requirement, because we are a TOD site with the bus rapid transit on Crowchild, allows us to have a minimum of 57 stalls. So we're providing significant more than is required. We're also providing 131 bicycle parking stalls that are located secure for the residents securely within the building, as well as 12 outdoor class 2 bicycle stalls for visitors, etc. So we're looking now, excuse me, at the overall site plan. So the big white box in the middle is the building. At the upper right corner of the screen where it says Parkline is the corner of our new internal roadway. Just for some orientation, north is to the right on this drawing. And so Crowchild will be running along the bottom of the page, just outside of the page. Just for a little orientation, so that's 30th Avenue then on the south of on the left of the page to the south. So as Tom mentioned in looking at the 3D view there, the new internal roadway will be the primary access point for the site, excuse me. For vehicular access, the parkade entry is just underneath the building along this access roadway. And then you can see, Tom, you're controlling the screen, so if I can just get you to hover your mouse where I'm speaking. The main entry is below at the lower level. So the main entry is actually at the parkade level. We have quite a bit of slope going across the site, sloping down from 30th Avenue to from the south to the north. And so we actually have the main building entry, at the parkade level. To the just above the white box of the building, you'll see kind of an undulating path there and patios. So those are the resident patios that for the ground floor units. And then we have an outdoor amenity area on top of our parkade, which we will show a little bit more of the program in the landscape drawings, but we have some seating areas and trellis and soft landscaping all along that area. At the south of the building on the left side of the page, we have the proposed city sidewalk that'll be running along there, as well as a secondary entrance for pedestrians off of 30th Avenue. You'll see there's also some short-term bike parking located for any visitors. The bike room as well is located in the bottom left on the main floor of this plan, so that south entrance also serves as a convenient access for people to take their bikes out and then hop on to the municipal pathway that is running along the east side of the building in between our building and Crowchild Trail. So that's actually a 9-meter city right-of-way. And we've proposed a extension of the municipal pathway that will also be serving as the third emergency fire truck access to the site. Because of this size of the overall development of Parkline, not just this parcel in particular, 3 fire truck access points are required. So there's 2 on the new roadway, and then this becomes a third emergency access. Again, most likely would never be used as a fire truck access and will most likely just be the municipal pathway. And then in that right of way, we'll have a heavy landscape berm that screens the parkade, as well as provide some landscape buffer between the municipal pathway and the building and Crowchild Trail. The adjacent property to the west, again, is part of Parkline in a future phase. We're doing a temporary grade transition as anyone who knows the site is aware, there's a kind of a big slope off of 30th Avenue to the flat field. So we're doing a temporary landscape berm. So in between phases of construction, we're not going to be looking at a big exposed parkade wall, but there'll be a temporary berm with sod on there. Tom, we can probably flip to the next screen then. So now we'll take you through some of the building design and the elevations.
Sorry,
Oh,
Tyler, I jumped
sorry.
ahead of you. I'll hand it over to Emma
Okay,
here for a moment on landscape.
absolutely, no problem.
Perfect. So this is a drawing that was submitted as part of the development permit application. It is a very technical drawing, and as Tyler mentioned, to orient yourself, north is to the right. So what you can see here is the undulating pathway that takes you from the 30th side, like from the south, into the amenity space. And yeah, Tom, if you want to hover too while I'm talking, that might be helpful. But the amenity space is a requirement of the development permit application. We have it located interior to the site, overlooking the new internal road. And then the pathway that leads on the west side of the building will see berming, planting, and some overhead structures. So as part of the development permit application, we are required to provide a certain number of tree and shrub planting, as well as softscape space for the total parcel area. And as Tom mentioned before, we're either exceeding or meeting the planting requirements for the site. We're not looking for any reduction for planting. So the linear park space creates a visual separation between the building and the residences to the rest of the site. There will be a vertical buffer supplied by the tree planting, and it'll create a very soft interface from the future developments and the residences to the west and the new building. So this space in here is a private amenity space for the building. It has a limited frontage to the dead end road of 30th to the south. And the sort of a topic of conversation with the city will just be on how we delineate that space. It hasn't quite yet been determined, but there will be a soft buffer that provides some screening and some privacy for the residences as well. Maybe, yeah, I think we could probably flip to the next screen now, Tyler.
Thank you very much, Emma. So now we'll take you through some of the exterior design of the building. So what we're looking right now at here is the north elevation of the building. So this is facing the internal road. So on the left of the screen, you have which is where Crowchild Trail is. You'll see a little note there with the existing concrete sound attenuation fence. And then you can see the fire truck access and the municipal pathway. Then you can start to see some of the in the green there how we're berming up to hide that parkade along Crowchild, so we're not exposing a big empty concrete wall. Towards the right on the bottom, you'll see the main entry lobby where we've got some nice glazing for the entry lobby, so residents can, if they're waiting for an Uber or a delivery, there's a little seating bar inside that looks right out. We'll also have some guest bicycle racks at the front there. What's not shown in these elevations is any of the actual soft landscaping. Like we show the green for where that is, but we're not actually showing the trees or any buildup of that. Just above the main entry lobby there, you'll see a note that says rooftop exterior amenity area beyond. So from the landscape plan, we actually have a whole series of shrub and tree planters in that area. So when you're approaching that entry, you will see kind of a green trees and shrubs just above that. On the bottom level there, we also have some service doors in the parkade entrance tucked underneath the building. So trying to hide that as best as we can. North elevation, we've tried to have large windows, which benefits the residents, but also gives some articulation to the building. In the following elevation, we will show how the building at 6 stories steps down on this north elevation. So you can see, if Tom, you can hover your mouse over the mechanical rooftop screened area. So that's actually stepped down at that building where we'll have some mechanical units that are screened up there. We're using a mix of materials on here. We have some wood apparent siding. We have cementitious white siding, and then 2 colors of charcoal paneled system. At the main entry, we are looking to use a little bit more quality high-end materials with a brick facade at the main lobby entry. Tom, do you want to flip to the next elevation? So this is the west elevation, so facing internal to the overall Parkline development. Here you get an idea of how it's a 6-story building, but because of the grade slope, it's a 6-story building with 30th Avenue on the right, the internal roadway to the left. So we step down at that vertical element, which is actually our elevator and lobby elevators and lobbies. So those are actually windows into the elevator lobby, so it'll be a nice bright interior space. And then at the bottom, there is the main entry, which is clad in brick. With the length of the building, architecturally we've tried to break up the massing on this elevation. We've done that in kind of wrapping the continuous balconies with a few breaks in between. It's tough to see in this elevation in the renders that will follow. The balconies are doing a little bit more visual interest. They actually undulate in and out in a kind of sawtooth pattern that gives a little bit more architectural interest to the building. And then kind of along the grade there is, again, not shown. Along there will be the trees and the trellises and all of the outdoor amenity landscape area that goes along that area. Probably could flip to the next slide there, Tom. So this is the south elevation off of 30th Avenue. So on the bottom left there's just a little doghouse exterior stair, little building that pops up of an exterior stair. That's an exit requirement from the parkade. And then in between that and the building is where we have that rooftop exterior amenity area that Emma walked us through there. So that'll be landscaped with trees and shrubs and berms and some trellis elements through there. You're seeing at the south end, we wrapped the balconies around the corner to again give visual interest and a little bit differentiation to the building. We've brought as many windows as we can along to that elevation too, to make sure that we're not giving any blank walls to our neighbors. As noted, we've kept the building at a 21-meter height, so 4 meters, almost a full story lower than what could be. And then you'll see at the bottom, we do have that secondary entrance to the building, as well as an access to the bike room directly from there. At the very bottom of that, there's concrete planters. We don't show the green, but those will have shrubs, etc., to kind of give a nice soft entrance to that south elevation. And then we get to our east elevation here, which is facing Crowchild Trail. So here you get an idea of the slope grading challenges that we had to deal with, sloping down from 30th Avenue from the south on the left to the north on the right. So you'll see there, that is where the fire truck access and the municipal pathway is going there. And then you can see the green bermed landscape up to hide the walls of the parkade. This is a city right of way, so we have to work with the city through the development permit process to determine the landscaping along there. But the intention would be to have some shrubs and trees wherever we can along there. There is a red line along the bottom of the page there. That actually denotes the top of the existing concrete sound attenuation fence that exists along Crowchild there. So from Crowchild, even the berming and the parkade is almost entirely hidden. At the right bottom of the building there, you'll see in a kind of darker gray color where we do have exposed parkade walls. We aren't just leaving that bare concrete. We're bringing along a ribbed metal panel to make sure that there's quality materials exposed on the building, and we're not giving empty concrete face. Where there is any concrete exposed of the parkade, we're looking at less than 4 feet that kind of tapers up to a foot, and that'll all be actually hidden by the shrubs and plantings in the burned landscape right of way. Again, you'll see on this elevation that going from south to north, left to right, from 30th Avenue to our internal road, we do step the building down so that it's a 6-story building from whether you're looking at it from the north or from the south. And again, on this elevation, because it is a long rectangular building, we've broken that massing up into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 kind of sections with some architectural wraps that project, and then the continuous undulating balconies in between. The continuous balconies was a decision for several reasons, both to provide lots of outdoor amenity space, private amenity space for the residents, as well to create a little bit of a buffer and acoustic buffer from Crowchild Trail for the residents, and as well as to create some architectural interest. Tom, we can probably then flip to the next slide there. So now we're getting a little bit easier to understand the building in some 3D perspectives. So this is from the corner of the internal Parkline roadway, looking directly at the main entry. So here you're starting to see some of that landscape and how the landscape on the upper amenity deck and the trees along the buffer to the next parcel will add some softness to the building at the main entry. You're starting to see a little bit more of the brick and the canopy and the glazing of the main entry. So right at that corner, as you're driving in from either from the east facing west or from the north facing south, the main entry will kind of visual anchor from our internal roadway as we approach. You can also see then how the parkade entry is kind of tucked underneath the building. On there, you're starting to see some of the materials in terms of the wood paneling and wood soffits on the architectural features of the wrap. On the ends, we have square balconies, but you can see through the length of the middle of the building, our balconies kind of zigzag in a sawtooth in and out along there. Tom, we can probably then flip to the other rendering. So now we're looking from 30th Avenue. So you can see here on the left, that little stair doghouse exit, and then the landscaped area in between with some of the trellises. You get a better view here at how the sawtooth balconies kind of work on the middle of the balconies, middle of the building, excuse me, to again provide some visual interest. On the south end, we didn't want to give any blank kind of boring facade, so we did wrap the balconies around, change up some materials, add a little bit more wood, warmth of wood, and then you can see here the landscape planters that help define that secondary entrance. Again, this is the first development permit application. We haven't yet received the detailed team reviews from the planning department. So at this point, nothing is set in stone. We do anticipate some revisions to design and through the comments with the city. But wanted to share at this point the design that we are proposing for the development permit for Parkline Phase 1.
Awesome. Thank you, Tyler. So team, I'll jump to some more bigger picture technical elements of the project. So kind of rewinding back to the overall land use and outline plan phase of planning for this site. So items going back over 2 years. One of the things that we undertook was getting an understanding of the technical and utility capacities in the region or in the area. So specifically relating to primary deep utility services. So those are being water, potable water lines, stormwater lines and sanitary lines that exist in the area. And so these were analyzed pretty rigorously by engineers specializing in this. This was then reviewed by city engineers specializing in the subject matter. And what was found is it was analyzed was to the full extent of the possible build out of the community. So that's 1,500 units, and even a bit beyond that is what, 1,500 units and beyond was analyzed for capacity levels. So what was concluded is that for water, there is sufficient water supply in the area, there's sufficient water pressure in the area, but a tie-in would be required, as well as constructing a distribution network of pipes within the plan area, and specifically it would be underneath the new city street or the new road within the site. So that's something that would be required to be completed prior to this building. Would need that water line installed prior to getting occupancy. And specifically, we'd have to also prove prior to construction that sufficient fire coverage exists during construction. And so that's something that would be happening during or even before construction of this building. Stormwater, similar, we'd be servicing that stormwater line in the city street. It'd be discharging into the existing storm infrastructure in Richmond Road. We would like to construct that at the same time as the water line. So in parallel to or even before the construction of this building, but certainly before its occupancy. And then finally, sanitary line. So everything rolls downhill. So this site or this phase in particular is at the top of the hill of the overall plan area. And so what would be completed alongside or even before completion or construction of this building would be the distribution of new sanitary lines within the plan area. Now, that said, in terms of offsite upgrades, what was identified is that up to 870 new units can be accommodated within the existing sanitary line that runs north of Richmond Road. So there would be no need to do an upgrade for that as part of this development permit. So that prior analysis was supported by further reviews by our civil engineering consultant on this file. And so with this one, you would likely see the construction of new pipes within the plan area, but you would not see modifications of any infrastructure offsite. So we try to limit kind of construction activity to within the plan area here. Similar with traffic. And so as part of designing the overall plan, traffic was analyzed in the area, as far west as 29th Street, and north as far north as 26th Ave, southwest. We analyzed actually initially what's on screen here is a few upgrades that were noted as recommended or required at a build out of 1,250 units. And this would be 1,250 units on this site, having factored in a bunch of other known proposals in the area, bigger projects such as Curry Barracks and other smaller applications that are closer to this site. So those were factored in, along with the general infill development, all the fourplexes, multiplexes that you see in the area. So some of that was done off of traffic counts, some of it was done off of projections. So what's on, and we analyzed up to 2,500 units. So a fairly extensive stress test of the road network. The following upgrades were identified as required at 1,250 units. So namely a new signal and dedicated left turn lane at 26th Ave and 25th Street. We looked at doing a new southbound left turn arrow here at 29th Street and 33rd Avenue. So that's warranted at some point along the way. 25th, doing a road widening of 25th Street itself. So both along our frontage of the site, where the overall property fronts onto 25th Street, as well as this segment between 26th Ave and Richmond Road. So that would be a widening to give wider vehicle travel lanes. It's widening curb to curb. And of course, along our site, the improvements to all sides of the frontage. We currently, there's only an existing older standard sidewalk against Richmond Road. There are no existing sidewalks along 25th Street or 30th Avenue. And as Emma noted earlier on the landscape drawing, that our part of our pathway network within this private DP site would tie into the new sidewalk along 30th Avenue. Tyler had noted a shared multi-use pathway and tertiary fire access. So construction of that new upgraded pathway through the site is part of the overall plan and proposal. And there are a few other opportunities that were identified as well that they're not necessarily tied to this DP, but are tied in to the overall plan. And so this was evaluated at 1,250 units. What happens at development permits as we go along is that at each development permit, the city assesses changes in the area, recency of traffic counts, and may look for additional analysis to see if any of these upgrades are triggered, on the journey towards 1,250 units or towards these upgrades. So we have done that on this. So an updated TIA was done as part of our submission. New traffic counts were done earlier this calendar year, and those traffic counts, did support and align with prior forecasts. So things are evolving somewhat as expected. And you can imagine that 119 units is less than 10% of this 1,250 projection. So it's a very early soft start to the overall capacity analysis. And it concluded that at this point with this DP, none of these initial upgrades are warranted at this time. So that's the update there on the TIA. And just know that's something that we have a very vested interest in infrastructure, not just functioning, but also functioning very well. We want all of our residents to have a great experience in the community and ensure that these upgrades are done when or before they're needed. So that is that. And I'll turn it back over to Martha.
Thanks, Tom. So just a reminder for those who've joined us since we started this session, we are recording this session and we intend to post it to our website along with this presentation slide deck. If you have any questions right now, is a good time to start submitting them using that Q&A function within the app. And I'll just discuss a little bit of the next steps and some of even addressing one of the early questions that came in about how we're going to communicate about the project. So we're covering today and providing an information session on the development permit for phase one. So phase one development permit was submitted at the end of April. You can view the details of the development permit on the city's DMAP. And this is how you can provide your comments about this submission to the city. So using the city's DMAP, which is the development map, it's an interactive map where you can scroll into the site and provide comments to the file manager with the city. If you do have any questions about the project or the site, that's something you can direct to the engage@minto.com inbox. And we really do encourage you to direct questions to Minto and direct your comments to the city through their DMAP process. This project is going to require many applications over time, and there'll be different processes and participants just depending on the various application type. But we will continue to share information about the development permit phase through our Engage Parkline website. As well, there's going to be different team members depending as we go through. So it's really important to continue to send your questions through to the engage@minto.com inbox, and also to continue to submit your comments through the DMAP process to the city. As we've mentioned throughout this presentation, we're just sharing this first round of plans, and we will anticipate that they are going to evolve based on city review. So we're just sharing where we're at today. This is a process that does undergo city review. They receive comments and they do a technical review, and this will undergo an evolution throughout this process as well. Anything else to add, Tom, before we jump into some of the question and answer portion?
Yeah, I'm just going to share one bit of specificity that we got from the file manager from the city. So for everyone's reference, her contact information is available on DMAP when you're going to click through and find this application. I know the city redid the DMAP interface in the last year, and so they used to know exactly what the comment deadline was for each round of submission or permit. So that's not currently displayed, but our file manager has noted that June 11th is the expected cutoff for kind of initial comments. But the city often takes comments a bit later than that, but she's going to put as a soft initial window here. So the better part of the next month here to have time with the drawings. And I know we went through it here with some of Tyler's narration, but if you want to kind of play the tape back at a later date and zoom in on the PDFs that are available on the city website in detail, there's a pretty extensive window of time to do that.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. And I'll invite the project team to join us again, and we'll respond to questions. And I'll just take one of the first questions that came in. It was about the purpose of tonight's session, whether this plan has been already decided, or what is the purpose of our session tonight. So what we're showing you tonight, as I mentioned, really is that initial submission. We do expect it to evolve through city review. So what we're doing tonight is sharing the information about that application and answering your questions. Again, we do encourage you to submit your comments through to the city through the DMAT process. So the intent of the session really is to make sure you've got the information so that you are informed about that application to be able to ask thoughtful questions and provide thoughtful feedback to the city. So thanks for your question. We had a question come in about the west-facing view of the building. So perhaps we could go back to that slide, Tom. Just a general comment, I think, maybe less of a question. Just a comment that there is not a lot of detail on the west view of the west-facing view, and that it's kind of a bit of a block. So perhaps maybe we can describe a little bit about this plan and how it's being represented here on the building elevation side.
Sure thing, I can jump in on that. Again, the flat elevation view is actually, it's a funny little thing in the architectural world. It is a requirement, to submit elevation views, but they are a completely flat 2D view, which your eye never can experience. So you actually will never experience this straight on view as it is. There's actually a little bit more color to that. Inside of the dark charcoal wraps that wrap each section of the balcony is a wood soffit and interior side panel. So there, if we're looking there, yeah, so that wood soffit that runs along there, that actually runs down the side of some vertical fins that project from the building. We are using again, mentioning a glass panel rail system with an undulation in that. So as the light moves across the sky, those glass railings at different angles actually will read very different at different times of the day. So at one side will read kind of, we'll have a little bit of reflection on the glass, and then the other side will feel more clear on that. We are, again, as noted, this is first passed at the DP application. We do anticipate, comments from the planning and urban design departments, and they do give design feedback as well on that. So I think the west elevation drawing can sometimes be a little bit misleading, but we are looking to create an interesting architectural building. We did want, as well, in choosing the material color palette, we did want to add some wood elements for some warmth of the building, but we did want to try a more neutral palette rather than trying to be a giant beacon and try something really provocative with bright colors all over. We did want to kind of fit in within the context of the community.
Thanks, Tyler. Tom, if you want to just go to our final slide that had the timeline and next steps for a moment. The timeline, yeah. Great, thanks. I just want a point of clarity because I might have misspoken. So if you have any questions for the project team, engage@minto.com, and information will continuously be shared on engageparkline.com. So that's our website, and the best way to contact the team for questions is engage@minto. So just thanks for the clarification. And a couple questions have come in about widening of 25th. So perhaps we can maybe jump back to the transportation slide. Can you provide some details on the location of the widening of 25th? Is it south of Richmond Road as well?
Yes. And so what was in brackets here was at roughly 700 units. And so that's 700 units not in development in the area overall. That's 700 units on our site in general. So it'd be 600 or 580 units more than what's proposed in this DP, that point would be then the trigger point for a widening of 25th. And yes, that would do two block segments. So the first one from north to south here would be the segment from 26th Ave to Richmond Road. And secondly, from Richmond Road down to 30th Avenue. And so a detail from our unplanned submission to facilitate that change. We've actually done proposed a road widening dedication where Minto would dedicate a strip of land so that all the widening can be accommodated on the east side of the street. So there would be no changes to the curb to the west, in front of existing homes. It'll be 100% done on the east side of the street. And while that could have been accomplished, the curb could have been moved within the existing right of way, it probably would have resulted in the removal of a row of boulevard trees and would not have allowed for a separated walk with boulevard trees. And so we chose to take the step of a street cross-section design there that allowed for widening of the curb while also doing a separated walk with tree line.
Thanks. And while we're staying on 25th Street, another question came in. How can a left turn lane be added on 25th Street at 26th Ave? The road is not big enough for another lane.
Okay, great question. So so this is the city has an Engage portal. It's for me, Martha, I think it's calgary.ca/engage. Or if you just search City of Calgary Engage, you'll get there.
It'll be it is an Engage portal, yes.
Yeah, so one of the projects they did consultation on and post the drawings for is they call it 5A lanes or 5A upgrades. So that's always available to all ages and abilities, mobility lanes on 26th Ave. So currently 26th Ave has painted bike lanes on it. There's a plan for some construction beginning this summer even to improve 26th Ave. So with that, they studied this intersection here. So that dedicated a left turn, it would not be from 25th Street onto 26th. It would be from 26th onto 25th. So that would be coming down the hill off of the 26th Ave overpass. The current configuration is a curved bike lane on each side and then a vehicle travel lane. So if a vehicle is turning left from 26th Ave westbound to come in, it actually blocks up traffic all the way over the overpass. There is enough room there, and the city has shown a design in that cross section that would create a third lane. Just move the curbs over, create a third lane as well as a vehicle stacking area for that left turn lane and that dedicated left turn down onto 25th.
Great. Okay. And just a general question. So I know in the past we have shared the TIA, the Transportation Impact Assessment. Are we intending to share that again through this application?
Yeah, so great question. So during the land use process that spanned well over a year, there's a very rigorous review of forecasts and technical studies. And I should note that it's not typical process for an applicant to share technical studies. Those are really, the city does not the city relies on professional engineers that are on city staff to be the technical audit and review body for those studies. And so, we took the atypical step of publishing those studies. They're still available for kind of the broader plan on the Engage Parkline website. So for everyone who kind of missed the last 2 years, all those materials do remain hosted on engageparkline.com. Sorry, was it .ca, Martha, or .com? Or .com, thank you. And you can kind of see the evolution of the project there. So these studies, were reviewed by administration. It was then went to Calgary Planning Commission and ultimately City Council, and all those bodies confirmed satisfaction with the infrastructure and general capacities in the area. So as part of the DP process, we're committing to updates as we've shared today of when these different upgrades will be shared. That said, given the volume of applications that will come from this site, and Martha mentioned there'll be different types with different forms of information shared. these applications will align much more with typical city process. So for a development permit, you'll have access to the development permit drawings that the city has published on DMAP, with a communication path to submit comments to the city. But our intent is to limit the disclosures to those documents that are hosted on DMAP and kind of give everyone one place to get the information directly from the city as the approving authority going forward.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. And also on that, we had a question come in about when will we see shadowing studies? So did you want to speak to the shadowing studies that are still on the website as well through the resources? I think.
Yes. So for the broader plan,
Tom,
yes,
Tom,
Tom.
I can actually answer that question.
Yeah, go for it.
As part of the UDRP requirements, we're actually in the process right now of creating shadow studies for this parcel in particular, as part of the some city requirements and a city request. But because this building is at the southeast corner of the overall parcel, the shadowing should be falling onto Crowchild and internally to the overall Parkline development. And don't anticipate, and from our preliminary analysis, do not see any shadowing of this building impacting any existing residents in any significant way.
We have a couple tree questions coming in and some landscaping questions that have popped up. One that came while you were discussing your response to the 25th Street widening, Tom. So will the trees along 25th Street be able to stay if the street is being widened?
The short answer is no. So just the nature of where those trees are and where their roots have grown. It's actually the challenge is less so about the curb widening. It's more the construction of a new city sidewalk. And so it is a requirement that new sidewalks are put in. That's not flexible, and simply where the trees have been deemed basically impossible by the city that those trees would survive the construction of that new sidewalk. So those unfortunately have to be removed. Now new trees will be planted in their place. Now the estimate we have is that we just along that frontage on 25th we'd be replacing at roughly 2 to 1 based on the new standards for tree planting density. So it would be likely doubling the tree canopy on that street.
Thanks. And continuing on the topic of trees, but moving to a different location of the site, is it expected that trees will be planted on the south side of this building to soften some of the views and to break up some of the interface?
I'll throw this to Emma. Emma, if you want this view or if you want your plan view.
The plan view actually might be a little bit easier to explain. So for tree planting, for best practice and actually as a requirement of the city, we have to be able to provide a certain volume of soil for trees. And that's to ensure survivability, that the trees as sort of an aspect of the design and the development permit will thrive in the long term. So it also might be helpful to look at the site plan from Tyler, but because of the parkade below, there is a limited soil volume on top of the structure to plant trees on the south side. And you know what, honestly, that's the case everywhere. So we've had to be selective of where we're actually able to provide additional soil volume to give trees effectively like an environment in which they can survive in. So currently we're showing the trees along the west side. And then there will be trees planted in sort of native soil on the east in that new right of way. We haven't currently shown a buildup of soil on the south side of the street, just due to the proximity of the building to the dead end of 30th Avenue. But it's definitely a comment that might come back from the city. So it's something that we're watching for as the site plan develops.
Thanks, Emma.
I should note that the approved cross section from our outline plan process for 30th Avenue did call for a line assignment of trees in the boulevard here. So between 30th Avenue and the proposed new sidewalk. That's not a mono walk. That would be a separated walk with trees there. Now, the exact placement of those trees will probably come as part of city feedback on this. So there's the kind of balance, a desire for tree density and canopy with good sight lines and not blocking entrances, particularly one that's a secondary fire access into the building. So they'll want to maintain visibility. But there absolutely is an intent to plant trees in this green strip here where my cursor is, between the existing curb, between the curb and this new sidewalk.
Yeah, sorry, Tom. Yeah, I was focusing just on the development site, but yeah, you've covered sort of off-sites.
Thanks, Em and Tom. I do want to make a note. I know we had sent this meeting out for 6 to 7. We are going to continue to answer a couple questions because we have some other topics that have come up. So we'll continue to take questions for the next about 15 or 20 minutes just to get to the bulk of questions that we've received tonight. We are recording the session. So if anyone does need to drop off, the session's being recorded. So you can come back to this particular spot if you need to drop off at any time. We had a clarifying question about the shadow study, Tyler, so I just want to follow up. Because this person mentioned the Richmond Nob Hill Community Association, which is east of the site across Crowchild Trail. So there is plans to install a solar panel on that building, and they were just curious, when we will share the shadow study. So they're interested to know about the potential impacts on the community association building. You're muted if you're chatting.
Sorry about that. Thanks, Martha. The shadow study will incorporate essentially the extent of the shadows through the times and dates through the city standards. So basically, kind of in a 2-hour increment from 10 till 4 p.m. On the solstices and equinoxes to show the extent of the shadows throughout the year. And the boundary of the shadow study essentially goes as far as our shadows will be cast. So we will have a better understanding as we complete those, how far essentially late afternoon shadows from when the sun's on the west across Crowchild. But from some preliminary analysis, it did not seem that was going to be of concern.
Thanks, Tyler.
Yeah.
Going back to transportation, because there may be an important point of clarity just on the pedestrian overpass, Tom. Are you planning to build the pedestrian overpass or perform the upgrades on 33rd Ave? And just maybe a point of clarity even with the city with regards to the overpass discussion.
Scope talk, and I'll just add one little tidbit to the shadow question here.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So just to kind of give everyone our anchor points of this here. So from our land use process, there was a shadow study done on the overall concept that this DP is consistent with, and that analyzed not just the 6-story building that you're looking at today, that is further south in the site. It also analyzed some of the potential parcels and available design space further north. So for anyone who's curious about those impacts, I would, going off of memory here, but you can check the resource on our website. This building should have 0 impact at any time of year or day on the community association building located quite a ways north.
Oh,
yeah,
on the parcel. But the relevant impacts from potential future phases that are not currently in for DP, that initial analysis is available on our project website. So it's there. And if ever asked the question, if you have trouble finding it, just email engage@minto.com and we can pull that resource for you. Transportation, let me flip back to the
and the pedestrian overpass and the potential 33rd upgrades.
Yes. Okay. Yes. So I mentioned other opportunities. So these were, what is an opportunity versus a required upgrade? So these are just elements that are traffic engineer flagged as things that are probably related to a regional level of investment or upgrade, and not related to a single application, but more related to build out overall. In this case, the Westbrook local area plan, or the West Elbow local area plan across Crowchild. There is a city sort of aspirational guideline that for along structural roads such as Crowchild Trail, that there is a opportunity for pedestrians and cyclists to cross roughly every 300 or 400 meters And the distance between 26th Ave and 33rd is roughly double that. And so somewhere at the midpoint on a long enough time scale of build out and evolution of the city, there's probably a desire for that. And if you go from 26th Ave, the old St. Charles School for the north has a pedestrian overpass in front of it before you get to 17th Ave. And so, and if you go further south down Crowchild from 33rd down towards Curry Barracks, Garrison Woods, you do see some extra density of pedestrian and cycling crossings in addition to the vehicular crossings. So that was just identified as a policy piece for pretty long-term planning, but not intended to be part of this project. And I think with that, the city did identify that there's luckily a required investment in improving pedestrian connections on 33rd as well. So there is part of a Main Streets investment program that is currently underway in Marda Loop. Some improvements are being made to these pedestrian crossings on the east side of Crowchild. And we expect that, in some future phase of city Main Street planning, that the west side will get attention as well.
Thanks, Don. I'm going to sort of combine two questions that popped up, and it was regards to sort of design feedback. So Tyler, just coming to you, and then after that, we have quite a few really good questions about just the general timeline of construction, and we'll go to those after this. So we had a question that came in, and I'm going to join these. So it was one. Lori Kennedy's asking, could you consider curving the corners of the balconies? And then we had another question come in generally of, is Minto and Zeidler, are you open to receiving design feedback from community members, or are you only receiving design feedback from the city? So perhaps we can maybe discuss, that the feedback we've received in context of how feedback is received.
Absolutely. We always say that all feedback is welcome. And a good idea is a good idea no matter where it comes from. And we always take those into consideration as designers and architects. We're not just designing a building for Minto and for the ultimate residents of this building. Ultimately, buildings exist in public space. So we do take into consideration design comments from the community. So absolutely is the short answer for accepting public feedback as well. Specifically on the curving the corners of the balcony, and a very interesting idea. This is a wood construction building, and as such, wood doesn't like to curve very much. Not impossible, but becomes technically quite and financially quite difficult to do. But a very interesting consideration to add a little bit of differentiation to the building. So appreciate all feedback on that.
Thanks, Tyler. So a couple questions on timeline, and I'll just try and sort of put them together a bit. So what is the timeline for this development? And also then a second part to this is, where will the construction equipment be accessing the site?
Great question. Okay, so I'll start with timeline first, and maybe I'll roll in some broader timeline elements here. I'm just going to our overall site visual. Here we go. So team, those that are familiar with the site will know that there's activity underway on the site right now. We commenced decommissioning of the existing structures on the site late last year. So that part of the project is well underway. We're happy to share that all the hazardous material abatement was completed earlier this spring. So a lot of the negative air pressure machines and a lot of the hazardous material handling was completed months ago. So that phase of the project is complete. And then the balance of demolition is well underway. We previously shared that we expect that to complete this summer, and that remains the case. We do expect to complete this summer. There are a bunch of other layers of design work, engineering reviews and approvals that need to get underway before any home building can begin on the site. And so a lot of that engineering work and planning is currently underway. There'll be a host of other submissions into the city in the coming months for their review. And but I think the earliest we would expect to commence any of that work would be late this fall. Some of that work is very seasonal, particularly when dealing with water. There's just the nature of soil conditions and and proper testing. It is seasonal work, and so but that's something that's later this year or more likely next. And then as for this building, so I shared that there's an initial comment period here until June. We would hope for a decision from the city on this development permit by late this year. So later in 2025. And then, following development permit, that triggers a whole other round of even more detailed drawing. So we mentioned, from land use and outline plan to development permit, you get a lot more detail. From there, we go to true construction detail of exactly where to place each timber and screw in the building, and those drawings take quite a bit of time. And so I think the earliest that you would see construction on this project would be sometime in 2026.
Thanks, Tom. And with regards to construction equipment, where would it be accessing the site for this?
Yes, sorry. Thank you. So, to date, historically the site had really 6 points of access or 6 driveways. So I'm going to be rough here. So this is the intersection of 24A Street and Richmond Road here, between a medical office and a newer building. So this whole frontage on Richmond Road has or still has a building on it. And then there was a small driveway here for a staff parking lot, and then there was a secondary driveway down the edge that went right along Crowchild, along the building. And then there were 4 driveways along 25th Street. So there was one into a loading dock, one into a parking lot, one into a driveway that went alongside the field, and then there was a field maintenance access as well. And so while the demolition is underway on the building here, all the access into the site has been through that main driveway into the site, which had we had a direct access here, say that we could have used off of Richmond directly, we would have used it. But just with the demolition of this phase here, that's not currently accessible. So that is where the access is currently. I've been told that as early as a month from now, we'll be able to actually stop using that access as the dominant one, and construct basically the beginnings of this new road into the site, even just for construction traffic. So we'll have a direct access onto Richmond Road that would then take vehicles straight down Richmond here. So that's where we'd have the main principal access into the site. In terms of construction, trade parking, material storage, staging, we'd be using some combination of properties within the plan area. So our intent is to contain all that activity to within the existing site, and minimize disruption to the surrounding community.
Thanks, Tom. And sticking on future-looking construction timelines, we had a question or a comment come in that said they understand from your statements that at this time there is no requirement for water or sewer upgrades. But I guess at a previous meeting through the land use process, you had mentioned that could take up to 2 weeks to complete. And she was just curious, how will residents be impacted in the future when it comes to those utility upgrades?
Okay, so 2 weeks for the upgrade specifically?
That's what I believe the quote was from a prior meeting, but perhaps maybe it could take 2 weeks in terms of doing the upgrade.
Yeah, okay, great question. And Alex, I'm going to try to answer this, and then please correct me if I'm too ambitious or if I'm sandbagging too hard on timelines here. So I'll speak to them separately. So with tie-ins, or something like water or a stormwater line tie-in, aside from particularly like a street closure at the point of tie-in in the street, which would be measured ideally in days rather than weeks, there should be no disruption. So in terms of ability to use your own plumbing facilities in your home, there'd be no noticeable effect. So that'd be limited to surface level access around the site, and those tie-ins. So for water, we'd be tying into Crowchild Trail. So given that it's into Crowchild, that's probably nighttime, overnight work. In terms of zone, so that's, and given it's Crowchild, it's probably also trying to measure it in hours rather than days. as well for the actual tie-in. Now, the actual construction and laying of the pipe internally, that is weeks and months of work, but the actual tie-in should be very minimal. For the storm line, same thing, very quick tie-in. For the sanitary upgrades, that would be a segment here under 26 Ave, so that, under 24A Street. So there'd be a service disruption there that might be measured in weeks there, but we'd aim to limit that timeline. And then in terms of anyone's use of plumbing facilities, the city, we'd work with the city to do a diversion in the meantime, so residents would be able to fully use their facilities as they would normally. So short answer is like service level disruptions for some periods of time, but no functional disruptions to utilities.
Thanks, Tom. And there's a question that came in, and my read on it is Ashley's asking if there's going to be any 3D models or 2D plans available for the next phases, the overall development. So I think just even outside of phase one, do you want to maybe speak to how the subsequent phases might come on?
Yes, absolutely. So in terms of visualization, yeah, we always strive to let everyone get a material taste of what is being proposed and how it's going to look. And so a lot of the visuals that the city asks us to provide and that we've provided here are fairly consistent with the general development permit process. So you can fully expect that as we get to development permit detail on each successive phase, you would get the same level of detail that you're getting here in terms of 3D. We would try to also try to colorize these and show the depth of materials, as well as give the first person perspectives rather than just as Tyler mentioned, some of the more academic, technical flat views or even aerials that and I'll go back to this. It looks exciting, but this is not the way that most of us will experience the site day to day. Even on approach to YYC. So. I think for the overall massing, I think we'll probably be seeing this visual a lot with a bunch of push and pull to it as we evolve through phases. But I'd say in terms of visuals available, it'll be consistent with the detail you're seeing as part of this DP application.
Thank you. Question, and I'd be curious actually even myself on the answer for this. Someone asked, have we considered how much traffic noise will be reflected from Crowchild back into the community on the east side? So yeah, so Tyler, do you want to speak to that actually? Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
At this point, the city has not required any traffic noise impact studies for this development. However, before I became an architect, I was actually pursuing a degree in physics. And an interesting thing about sound waves, and just waves in particular in physics, because we've created undulating balconies that go in and out and create angles on that actually will dissipate noise. If it was just one big flat wall, complete flat wall with no balconies, and just that would be the worst case scenario. Like if you've ever stood inside of a big empty hard room, it echoes like crazy. As soon as you put more and more things in that room, it dampens the sound. So the angled balconies and the breaking up the facade in that regard actually will help dissipate some of that reflected noise. But again, that's my understanding of the science. We haven't actually been required to provide that from the city. The overall width of Crowchild and with the sound attenuation fences that exist, we don't anticipate that the construction of these new buildings will all of a sudden create excessive noise for that existing community to the east.
Yeah, and just for the Tyler's comment, actually, this section is really good. So for reference, this is existing edge of Crowchild and the curb. There's Green Boulevard there, existing sound attenuation fence. And then this hashed line is the existing property line. So you should note that while this building looks adjacent to Crowchild, it is set back quite a ways from Crowchild. So this is a full 9-meter right-of-way dedication that we are adding. So in addition to those 9 meters and further setback from those 9 meters, this green berm here will have tree plantings in it. And so that will further soften this interface here along Crowchild.
Great.
Yeah, great point. Thanks, Tom.
So I just want to know, so we have actually gotten to all of our questions and we've appreciated your comments. So just to recap, in case there are any final questions, please do drop them in the question and answer chat or raise your hand if you'd like to ask them to the project team. But just a reminder, so Kendall has shared the city's DMAP link to this site, so you can use that link to submit comments to the city, and you can continue to reach out to the project team at engage@minto.com. So, we will be continuing to share this. The slide deck will make it onto our website, engageparkline.com, as well as the recording of this session. So if anyone didn't make it, they can still review the materials and send the project team questions. I don't see any more new questions coming in. Anything else, Tom, that you maybe wanted to raise just while I take a look at the chat channel for a minute?
No, I just, I mean, I'll just say, everyone, I appreciate that the overall project is a big change for the community, and even in isolation, a single development permit for a building like this is a notable change and evolution for the community. And just want to, thank everyone for their time this evening and their attention. And please do reach out with questions and. Similar to Tyler's comments earlier, good ideas are good ideas, so regardless of where they come from. So, please don't be shy in sharing them, and in particular, sharing them with the city, given that they ultimately, their team is the reviewing and approving authority on this level of application, and so it's important for them to hear from you. Yeah, as Martha said, all the resources that are available will from tonight will be posted on the website as well as a link to where to find the city resources and comment portals.
Great, thanks. No, I think we have covered quite a few of the questions. I'll just sort of last call if there's anybody that still has a question that wanted to get addressed. And yeah, thanks for attending this evening. Again, we do anticipate that what you're seeing today will undergo some revisions and evolution as it goes through a city review and process. So you can stay posted and stay tuned to engageparkline.com. And also, again, reach out to engage@minto.com with any questions at any time. Anything to add before we sign off? Tom, Tyler, Emma? Okay. Thanks again, and we appreciate your time this evening.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.